Welcome to another episode of the Dentology podcast, where we discuss the business of dentistry. In this podcast series, we'll be discussing all the non-clinical aspects of dentistry, from goodwill values, finance, marketing, how to buy and sell a dental practice, mindset, through to where you can invest your money in team management issues. My name is Andy Acton, and I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Strevens. Let's jump straight into it. So we've got Robbie Hughes that we're talking to, and it's absolutely fascinating listening to the start, that kind of that young, the things he learned as a young boxer have really carried through and influenced his mindset and his attitude through his whole career heavily.
And I think what was interesting was that there's lots of lessons in there that he's learned, like the HR one. People will be interested about the noodle shop. Yeah, but he learned an HR skill and a business skill. But people probably don't know that. They see just what he is now and what he's created now. I think it was fascinating. A really good conversation. A lovely guy as well.
And also the honesty about failure. We were talking about how the modern world is very much engineered, that kind of we so often just see the destination without seeing the journey, but listening to the things that he's done, but that kind of pursuit of excellence and, to have kind of built businesses that all relate to dentistry, but in such different areas, a dental practice, a lab. He's got what would appear to be a composite veneers course, but actually it's trying to elevate dentistry. And,
everybody.
And then the scrubs
for the
business.
benefit of everybody. I thought that's the thing I got out was the fact of it's for the benefit of the dental profession and also for patients.
Yeah, and the passion that comes across from what he's doing. Brilliant. Really enjoyable conversation.
Nice guy,
today.
Really good.
So welcome, and today we are delighted. We're joined by Robbie Hughes, and Robbie is the Principal Director of Dental Excellence, the dental practice and cutting edge laboratory, the founder of Mediform, which is changing the scrubs game. We'll find out more about that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Also the founder of Avant-Garde Dentistry, the digital composite veneers training program, and one of the most focused and driven people I know.
Wow.
He's incredible. Morning, Robbie. How you doing?
Flip, yeah. There's an intro for you, Robbie.
Yeah, not bad. Thanks very much, Andy.
You're doing so much, and I'm looking forward to kind of digging into all of it, because it all joins up, but they're all completely different businesses as well. So you have a lot on your plate. Just to kick off with, I was listening to another podcast recently with the chef Marcus Waring, and as I was listening to it, it was almost like they were talking about you, and I'll explain kind of why, because he was brought up in Southport. He boxed as a youngster. He's been absolutely tenacious in mastering his craft. And that relentless desire to do more and drive, it just felt like it was so like you. And I just like to explore kind of, where does your drive come from? And is there something about people from the Northwest in your experience where there is this kind of drive to really kind of, succeed and push things forward? But when I listened to this thing about Marcus, I just thought I could be listening to Robbie talking.
Southport.
Yeah. So
where have you been to Southport?
I have been once. Yeah.
I've been there, I think.
In fairness, Marcus, one of his desires was to get away, get out. Yeah. But yeah, where does your drive come from, Robbie?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of similarities there. I think it is probably a combination of obviously the city that we grew up in. People from Liverpool tend to be quite ambitious. We're authentic within ourselves, and that sometimes makes us sort of quite unique in so many ways to go out and want to do better and work hard. And I think the martial arts and the boxing background, if that's in you from a very young age, it just develops this sort of mentality, this certain discipline within you, which becomes a normal part of your life, which, to me, the drive, the work ethic is completely normal, but only when you reflect or when other people bring it up that you really sort of start to realize that it is quite different. And as you mentioned on that podcast, that comes out quite uniquely in his story as well, really. So I can see the similarities, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. And did you started boxing young, didn't you?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, when did you start?
6.
Oh wow,
86, yeah.
And you weren't just a good boxer, were you? I've sort of, from what I understand, you were a pretty good. When you sound like world champion or something.
So I started. Yeah. It was kickboxing that I was involved in from the age of 6. It was a massive part of my life for 20 odd years. Travelled the world,
Wow.
competing really, and yet managed to attain numerous world titles as a junior and as a senior.
Yeah,
And
that's nuts, isn't it? I mean,
Insane.
I love the modesty of
Yeah.
I did a bit of boxing. It's like, a bit of boxing's me in my garage.
But also, I imagine the sacrifice that your parents must have made, because when you're that young, I played racket sports as a kid, nothing like to that level. But I had a massive appreciation that my father, most weekends, meant that we had to get packed up in the car, we had to drive off around the country to
yeah,
play in competitions. And I guess
yeah,
there was a sacrifice from your parents' side of things to support you to that level.
absolutely, yeah, exactly the same. Most weekends, my dad would and myself would travel the country, competing in competitions. So because I was competing at quite a high level, obviously we had competitions that we would attend as a club, but we always did more. There'd be competitions everywhere. My instructor
Mm.
hated us traveling south. From Yo used to get a bad deal. But, I used to travel, just me and my dad. We'd travel literally up and down the country every weekend really, and compete, go into the Lions Den. Um,
Yeah.
all the time, and it's just to get fights under our belts more than anything, and just constantly strive for improvements. And I owe a lot to my dad for that, because he did dedicate endless hours. My dad worked shifts at the time, so sometimes in the week I wouldn't see him if he was working nights or whatever shift he was. My mum would be taking me to the gym. My mum used to hate taking me to the gym. She couldn't watch. She couldn't watch.
Oh, really?
I think that's mums for you, isn't it?
Yeah, and then over weekend, most weekends, as I say, I would compete, and my dad would sort of drive me all around the country, and
Yeah.
that's
And
where it all started.
were you
Yeah.
boxing, doing training to be a dentist as well?
Well, that came much later. So those years were when I was like 8, 9, 10, 11, right into my teens. As I got a little bit older in my teens, 14, 15, 16, my dad was always with me, but then obviously I was traveling myself, um, to training and stuff. I remember specifically one summer holiday. I was 16, and my instructor put me in the adult world championships a year early, because I'd won all the
Wow.
junior titles, and he told me to go into the adult a year early. And that whole summer holidays, um, I say my dad was working for the whole 6 week summer holiday. The world championship was like, I think it was the first week in September. 3 times a day I was training. I had to get 3 buses to go. We were training in a
Oh,
local cricket club. That's where we were having all our sessions, apart from the evening session, which was in our gym. But we were training at 9 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then 6 p.m. in the evening. And I had to get three
wow.
buses twice. So we had to get three
Mm.
buses there for the 9 o'clock session, 3 buses back, 11. I'd eat, have a little nap, 3 buses back. And that was my whole summer holiday after just finishing my
Man.
GCSEs, I think. So it basically didn't get us a holiday.
When everyone else is out partying,
Yeah,
you're,
it was
you're still
literally,
having to do the
it was
exercise.
literally that level of commitment. It was
Yeah. Out of interest, Robbie, what month are you born in?
September.
September, right? So you were kind of the oldest and biggest and strongest in your school year
I wouldn't say the
by
biggest and
virtue of being.
strongest, but I was the oldest, yeah.
No, it's interesting because Malcolm Gladwell,
I knew you were going to do that,
who's
Gladwell,
yeah,
yeah.
he's a writer for the New Yorker, and he did a study on people that excel in sports, and as a rule, they tend to be born between September and January because they tend to be the more developed because they're slightly older, and it's just interesting that you're in September and you obviously got to perform to an incredibly high level,
Yeah,
whereas normally people that are from April to August tend to be the smaller in the school year, and in school they tend to stream
absolutely.
kids
I
based
see
on
that. I see
performance.
that in my
So
son now.
the
My
better
son's,
kids tend to be the older kids.
yeah, my son's August born, and he's small frame like me, and I really see it now. Even
Yeah,
so, he's 9 now. He's not 9 until August, but obviously everyone else in his
yeah.
year is already 9.
Yeah,
Some of them
but then,
9.
but then there's a weird twist to it that when you go to the top, and I mean like the Ronaldo, the Messi level, those people tend to be the younger in the school year, and I think it's because kind of the odds are stacked against them. They just work so flipping hard to prove
Yeah,
the odds that those people tend to be the ones that literally get to the
Well, you're
absolute
back
peak
to that thing. You've
of
got
what
to
they're
have
doing.
talent, but you've got to work the talent.
Yes,
Otherwise, it
yeah.
doesn't work. I was going to ask you. You know, like all the things you've won. Do you like have a do you remember them? So do you like have a trophy room or something, or are they all just like in a
I
drawer
did,
or something?
I did have,
I'm assuming you
and
get
then
medals and belts.
yeah, I did have. My mum's got like magazine cuttings of everything. She's got books this thick that she's
Wow.
kept everything. And at one point, I had all my trophies. When I still lived in my mum and dad's house, all my trophies were there. They were in like a big trophy room. And then when I moved out, eventually we got rid of them. Just there was
Yeah.
just too many to
Oh
keep.
wow.
My
And
mum
and
will
and
probably
and,
have
and
some still.
yeah, and the segue over into business. I think I heard this right, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. That when you were young, you used to have a little side gig when you were competing in competitions where you used to run little training sessions and earn money from it. Was that right?
Yeah, so when I was about 16, I started teaching seminars around the country. So I used
That's
to,
brilliant.
I started earning money from teaching private lessons locally, and then I was teaching seminars around the country where, say, an instructor or an association would pay me to come and teach a group of, say, 50, 100 people, whatever. Um, and then then I did my own DVD series. So what I did was I took all the
Oh
techniques
wow.
from the syllabus, all fighting techniques, all training tips, all training drills, you name it. I took it across a volume of 9 DVDs and recorded it across 3 days. This when I was about 18, I think. And then I
Yeah.
advertised it on MySpace. And then when I went out to the tournaments or when I went to
MySpace. Oh my word.
maybe
I was
Yeah.
going to say
I think about
I was
MySpace.
going to
Man,
say
oh man.
there's people listening to this that are going, they're having to Google DVD and then Google
MySpace.
MySpace
Yeah.
because they're
yeah.
like, what is that?
But when I think about it now, that was just natural. For me, I did it. But when we think about what people
Yeah,
talk about now, creating content, putting it on a platform, like I was doing that 15, 16 years ago.
it's no
Wow.
different. It's just a different way of doing it these
Different
days.
way of
Yeah,
doing it, yeah. Bit ahead of my time, really. Because if that was now with the platform that people have now, I probably would have not even went into dentistry. Would have made millions from
No.
just doing that, probably on a global
yeah.
scale.
Did
Um,
uh, did just quickly, Robbie? Did you because of what you were, as in like world champion kickboxer, did you end up with this? Lots of people would try and get it on with you, and because they'd sort of say, right, well, you're a hard man, so we'll have a fight or something. Or so did you have to develop this sort of almost ability to say, I'm just going to walk away? And because I sort of imagine that
Mm.
someone who's like, you're this world champion kickboxer, people are,
A target
getting
almost. Yeah.
bevied up on a Friday night or something and thinking, right, well, okay, we'll have a go at that, Blake. I mean, did you
it
have that,
wasn't.
or
It
am I
wasn't
sort of
really
just
like.
fantasizing it?
It wasn't really like that for me, to be honest. I wouldn't say it was like that for me, to be honest. People obviously knew, and I tend to get on with most people. And the club that I'm from was very very close knit, and there was a lot of mean people in that club. So most people probably thought, I don't want to get involved with any of those guys. So I think I was a little bit sort of. I had that sort of safety barrier that it was almost like the attitude that we had was you pick with one of us, you're going to have to pick on all of us.
Yeah.
Right, okay, right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it was quite notorious club in the city at the time, and
Mm.
yeah, it was never really like that, to be honest.
Mm. Moving kind of over from the boxing, but just the last point as we head into the business side of things. I'm always fascinated by the link between business and sport. And James Kerr wrote a book, Legacy, about the All Blacks, about what their culture and what business can learn from it. And then there's the High Performance podcast that does a similar thing. It looks at what can be achieved in sport. Are there key things that you learn as kind of behaviors when you were performing at such a high level in boxing that you've been able to take through with you to your business world
Yeah,
that have
absolutely.
kind of really helped you?
Absolutely. As I say, it's just something which is embedded within you. I think, the level of self-discipline and work ethic and then consistency that comes with that
Mm.
inevitably plays its part in business. Um, you know, and I think that's what I've shown through my working career as, from owning my own business. Everything that I do, is it's endless hours of hard work. It's
Mm.
disciplined and it's consistent. And I think if you
Yeah.
stick to those things, you will succeed
Yeah.
eventually. And I think it's having a focus as well and a motivation towards a common goal. So obviously, in training or martial arts or whatever, the common goal is to be the best, to be number one, to be the
Mm.
champion. and that's what you're working towards consistently. And my battles were fought in the gym, never really in tournaments. The hard days were always in the gym from the hard work. I used to get kicked around that gym by heavyweights day in, day out. To days where you don't want to turn up and you don't want to go, and if you overcome those sort of mental battles and adversity, then as I say, I take all those elements into all walks of life now, really, and I take it into business. I treat my vision in my business exactly the same, and I'll sort of work day in, day out to sort of reach those end goals, and I'm very disciplined in how I approach it.
It's a bit like that. Is it the Arnold Palmer quote? For those of you who are of a certain age, Arnold Palmer was a really famous golfer who people said you're very lucky, and he said the more I practice, the luckier I get. Yeah, and I think that's it, isn't it? The more you put in the hard work, you get the results, but you have to put in the hard work to get the results.
I think it's a really good lesson, because you're still pretty young, but there's people coming behind you, and I think a lot of people just want success. They don't want to put in the hard yards, and particularly social media. Social media is great at showing you the destination, but not the journey. And to hear a story where that hard graft started as a young kid training and boxing, but those skills and that resilience and that focus and drive and that commitment to consistency has now benefiting you massively in your business life. So I think for young people, I think it's a great lesson to learn. So you're obviously disrupting dentistry through your various ventures. Was it always a given that you were going to own a dental practice?
I was going to ask quickie, how did you get into dentistry? What was it sort of?
Yeah, it was always a given I was going to own my own practice. Absolutely. I think as I've developed in my career now, and I learn more about myself and what I'm doing and where I'm going and where I feel my passions lie. I think deep down I'm just an entrepreneur. I'm trying to find solutions to make things better constantly. That's just the way I am. And dentistry just happened to be the industry that I was placed upon.
What made you choose dentistry, Robbie?
It was more just a process through the school. I went through a very good school. I was getting good grades. And by the time you get to like around 14, 15, you've got to choose, obviously, what subjects you're going to do and why. And you do these careers days, and then you have to do work experience placements. My school were almost placing the options. Do you want to do medicine, dentistry, all these sort of scientific subjects? And for me, my dentist was the obvious place to go and do my work experience, because I was there every few months getting new gum shields for the martial arts, so I had a good relationship with him.
Oh wow,
that's interesting.
So that's why I had a good relationship with my dentist. He always took particular interest in where I was traveling to next. So every time I was going to like an international tournament to get a new gum shield, and he put like the Great Britain flag in and stuff like that. So
that's brilliant. That is brilliant.
So I went and asked him to do some work experience, and I was already a little bit impressed with, he was quite cosmetically driven. In the type of treatments he was doing. He drove a Porsche. I was a little bit impressed by all that. And it was quite clear that, it was his own business. And I think that's what definitely, as I learned about career pathways in dentistry, I think, you go and get your degree, you learn about dentistry, but you can almost take your own direction relatively quickly. And that was always the direction that I was going in. And then as I developed through uni, obviously, learning my craft, I knew I would have to learn everything, but I always wanted to go aesthetic, and I always wanted to have my own business. I was in the United States in my elective year in fourth year. I spent a month in Miami, and I was already looking and focusing on what was going on there in the States and what was different about the way they did it there to the way they do it here. And even back then, if you look at what we've done at Dental Excellence, a lot of it is based around some of the things I was learning way back then.
I think you're right what you said there. I think you are an entrepreneur, and if you'd been an accountant or a lawyer or whatever, I think you'd have disrupted. I think you're just a business person who happens to be a dentist. You could have been a business person that could have been other professional careers, but this is just the one that you're in at the moment. And so, what's the big plan? I mean, I've obviously been to your practice. It looks phenomenal. I mean, when you walk in, it's kind of the Four Seasons. it's the Four Seasons Hotel of Dentistry, isn't it? You know, when you walk in, it's got that lounge appeal and it's very relaxed, and there's a concierge element to it. But beyond that, what is the big plan? Because obviously you've got your lab across the road now, haven't you? Literally directly opposite. What is the big plan for dental excellence?
The big plan is to just keep on going and keep on moving. We've created a nice sort of vertical business strategy now within dental excellence. We've got a great clinic, got a big team. I've managed to find freedom from that clinic, which was always the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Before we built the clinic in 2018, I was working endless hours as a dentist, and even though I enjoy certain elements of the dentistry, right now I'm still doing a lot of dentistry. I take on very challenging cases now, and to get those patients from where they are with no hope to fantastic smile makeovers, new function, new leases of life. I don't think I'll ever give that up. But building that business and that team and learning how to delegate and build a big team has given me the freedom to enjoy other things within business and outside the business. And that was always the goal, to build such a big facility. And as you say, to disrupt the perception of dentistry. That was my big frustration for many, many years.
Did you do any business training, Robbie? Because obviously going from doing your DVDs is great, but then to running a business with people, which is always tricky with people. Did you sort of do any training, have a mentor, or is it something that just sort of like you were able
that I've
to
just took in my
embrace?
stride. I'm one of those people that tend to sort of jump and learn how to fly on the way down, and dealing with people has probably been the hardest challenge. It still is a challenge. But we're there now. I'm very proud of what we've got. Like, every day I walk in there, and I'm always looking for improvements. It's just the way I am. There's always room for improvements. There's always room for growth. We probably will open more clinics. But I was forcing the issue on that a little bit around 2020 when COVID hit and certain things happened in my life. And I decided to slow that down. So we have satellite clinics in London and Dublin, and maybe we convert them into full-time clinics. But as things started changing and avant-garde progressed, I really started to find a real passion. And I started realizing what we were doing with avant-garde. People think it's just a composite veneers course, and it's really not. It's a concept. It starts with education, because I believe without educating the dentists about the concepts of what we do, we have a blueprint in dental excellence, which has took me 10 years to develop. I honestly believe that I can plug in a blueprint into anybody's dental practice, and I can fast track their success, and that's become a big passion of mine, I suppose. I think if you educate well, if you stick to very rigid protocols and workflows, and you work and communicate well with a lab, and you know how to build your team towards the same common goals, and you definitely introduce digital technology into these practices, because that is the one thing that allows predictability and reproducibility of our outcomes. I think all those things now that I'm constantly tweaking and improving within dental excellence, it's almost become a little R&D hub for where we want to take things.
It's where you can practice, isn't it? You can try it and then roll it out, the delivered function.
And what based on what you just said there, and given how busy you are, is it still important then that you will always stay chairside for a proportion of your time? Do you envisage a situation where you're literally down tools and just be on the business side, or to keep developing? Do you think you need to still have some of that patient contact?
A bit of both, yeah. I think I'll always have the patient contact. As you know, I'm a big sort of believer in the patient experience. For me, the consultation process is everything. It's everything. That sort of unique consultation, that first experience when the patient first walks through the door, that's everything. You get that right, you've got a good foundation to then build a business. But I think what you've got to do with that consultation process is you've got to be able to deliver what you're promising the patients, and you can only do that with predictability and scalable outcomes. You can't scale a business with just your hands. And I believe that we've introduced workflows now which allow any dentist to deliver the same level of quality which we're raising the standards of all the time as well. I also believe through what we're doing with the lab and what we're doing with technology, and we're trying and testing new techniques and new materials all the time. I think it's important that we carry on doing that. Dental excellence will grow naturally on the back end of that. I think we'll always lead the way. I truly believe that, because we're always doing new things. But my passion is definitely helping the industry as a whole. And the way I see that sort of enrolling over the next few years is, I believe I understand the psychology of the patients very, very well. As a customer, to be honest with you, more than just the patients. They drive the market, whether we like it or not. They drive, the market. They're driving things forward. People complain about things like, I don't know, Smile Direct Club or going to Turkey, but I look at these things and I try to understand the psychology of the patients, of why are they making those choices, and then how do we divert them back to making the right choice. And if you look at them, then those things, they're the things that are sort of delivering new trends. And if we can sort of redevelop that new trend to offer a better solution, then we're satisfying the patients, we're changing the perception of what UK dentistry is or can be, and together we're raising the standards of our industry. And for me, that's what Avant-Garde is really about. Slowly but surely, we're putting things in place. We've raised awareness about the brand of Avant-Garde. Now dentists are taking note, and we're training people quite well. We're going to train people more and more, and we've got a nice level, sort of easy entry point with digital composite veneers, but there's so much more that we can teach and learn. I've worked endlessly for the last 2 years on the lab. The guys in the lab hate me because I walk in there every single day and I pick holes in everything they do, even though they're fantastic technicians and the way we do things with the workflows. I just want that to be perfect, because I believe that is that's the bottleneck for us to scale.
But I was going to say, although you say they hate you, but it's done with a good heart. You're in pursuit of excellence. That's what it is, isn't it? It's just, can we do it better?
Yeah. It's passion. I'm very passionate about where I believe we want to take things. And as I say, like I see Avant-Garde being almost like an answer to truly scaling dentistry. So people think, like, I could open 20 dental excellences like that, but then inevitably you're going to lose quality. You're going to lose quality when you're such a perfectionist as what I am. And it's about, for me, everything I'm doing right now, it's about raising standards consistently, and then encouraging everybody else to raise the bar. And we've done that a little bit by leading the way with what we did with dental excellence, and how we sort of developed a luxurious experience for patients, and you see things tripping along. But then dentistry gets very stagnant again, and people tend to love the comfort zones of doing things that just work, and that just isn't what I'm about. So my goal now is to sort of, as I say, almost have this blueprint which other dentists can plug their practices into, and we literally just give them all the answers. We're even going to drop patients in their chair for them, so they don't need to worry about marketing, they don't need to worry about any of that stuff, and they can then just do the dentistry, which is absolutely fine, because that's what a lot of dentists love, but it isn't what I love.
Want to do,
and what you say there is spot on. We obviously work with people who are buying or selling dental practices, and it's rare that we have a dentist who says, I don't enjoy dentistry, I don't enjoy treating the patients. They don't like managing people. They don't like the stress of the finances. They don't like running a business. They don't like having to deal with the marketing and the sales and all the other, it's all the other stuff that they're not traditionally trained for. And I guess if you can get to a system where you can support them in doing the bit they really enjoy, that's got to be good for UK dentistry. Definitely. If we can up the standard across the country of how dental practices operate, there's no downside to that at all.
I think one of the things I think about that turkey thing, that on iPlatter.
Yeah,
I think one of the interesting things that came out from it was the fact of patients didn't really know what was being done.
Yeah.
They thought they were having a veneer, but they didn't really appreciate they were in some cases having their teeth filed down. And I think the great thing about what you guys are doing is the fact of there's a real education piece in there that says, well, this is actually what we're going to do. So as we can give you the end result, but actually this is how we're going to give you the end result. And I think something like that, hopefully patients will become more aware that they want what you can deliver, but you can also deliver it in a way that is not destroying their mouth. And I think I thought it was fascinating. I think it could be quite interesting as to if consumers actually really paid attention rather than just saying, "Oh, I'll go to Turkey because I can get it done for $3,000 or something."
It's interesting what you were saying, Robbie, about that psychology of the patient and understanding where they're at and where they're thinking. And there's a phrase that you have to kind of go where the eyeballs are. Yeah. So let's just say if everyone's hanging out on Facebook, if you appear on Facebook, you're going to be seen by them because that's where everybody is. And it sounds like what you're saying is, we need to understand their thought process and why they're making their decisions. Because if we understand that, then we can make sure we've got a strategy to get in front of them and tell our story. It sounds like avant-garde because I think your Away Days program is genius. I think it's
clever, very clever,
so clever. I mean, you've obviously got a strong link to football, which we'll talk about later.
Did go to Tottenham, but
that's but holding it in football grounds, calling it Away Days, I think that's smart and it's different. And for the people that come on that initial course, what does their journey, because you've been doing this for a while now, so you were saying it's not just kind of a composite veneers course. So when they turn up, what's their driver to come and engage to start with? And then what does it look like when they're finished that day? How do they kind of embrace that ongoing?
It's changed a little bit over the years. As we started in 2019 and everyone was okay, this is a composite veneers course. It's learning the injection mold technique, which I'm proud to say is everywhere now. Everyone wants to do it. Like when we started in 2019, not many people were really talking about it, but it's great because I honestly believe that that's part of my job on this journey. It's to push things forward a little bit. It's to lead the way and encourage people to follow if they want to follow and do it their own way. That's absolutely fine because I'm doing it with all the right intentions, and I want to do it so that the patient's experience and the quality of what they get is constantly being improved. So dentists come on that course knowing they're going to learn a specific technique for composite veneers, but we take them right through the whole patient journey. That's the key. So it's what I call the 3 C's and the 2 E's, and then that ends with a predictable workflow. For the predictable workflow is the bit that we teach. And we have many workflows for many different scenarios, but the 3 C's is almost good content. Without good content, no one's going to know that you even exist. That content has to be to an identified audience. So you need to know what your audience is and how you sort of attract the type of patients that you want to attract. The right clinic. So, the clinic, how it's set up, how it looks, how it feels, how your team are trained, what its USPs of the clinic are. And you've got to have a brand identity. And you've got to stand loud and strong with that identity. Okay, what is it that we represent? And again, that needs to be consistent all the time. And then you've got the final C, which is conversion. You've got to know how to convert your patients. So you've done all this hard work with your marketing. You've built a beautiful clinic. They turn up. If you don't meet expectations or exceed expectations at that point, they're going to drop off. So the conversion comes with a very unique way of your consultation process. And my consultation process, it's the perfect balance between those 2 E's, which is experience and education. As dentists, we want to educate our patients from the get-go, but we're educating them about things that we want to talk about, not really what the patient wants to talk about. So we always start with the patient's end goal in mind. And you go, why are you really here? It's, most of the time it's because they want to improve the way they look and the self-confidence. So we start with that, and then once they understand that, we're going to get them there. And we have we like to, on the second appointment, we promise them we're going to show them how they're going to look at the end through the mock-up. Regardless of the treatment plan, whether it's ortho, this, that, whatever we're going to do, it's important that the patient understands that you are the right person to get them to that end result. And that's where we utilize the mock-up. Once the patient is motivated by the mock-up, they're all yours. And that's a big part of what we teach. And then you need to have the right workflows in place to be able to execute what you've shown and promised that patient. And that's why digital technology is so important. It's the only way to almost reproduce and give predictable, well-controlled outcomes.
The predictability, isn't it?
Predictability. Yeah, you can put protocols in place through the lab. I think you've got to have a good communication with the lab, good communication with the patient, and allow patient elements of customization into the end result, which only really comes or begins with the mock-up, and then obviously with provisionals if you're doing indirect, and then good communication.
Robbie, do you routinely take patients over to the lab? when they come to your practice?
Yeah. So if a patient is in provisionals, for example, so we've done a mock-up, we've done some preps or whatever, and then the patient's in provisionals. What we'll often do is we review the provisionals. We have a very standard, strict photo video protocol that gets followed by everybody every single time the patient's in. And then we'll review the photos together with the patients, and then we'll get their feedback. They'll go over to the lab, they'll meet the lab team, and then, we'll put the CAD design on the screen, and they'll start to customize things a little bit. To them, they feel like they're customizing everything. To us, we've already taken care of the function. We know where we are with the proportions. We know that we're pretty much there. But for a patient, just changing the tip on a canine or shortening a central or opening an embrasure, that's everything to them. And it changes everything about their experience and their perception of what you're giving them.
It's brilliant. It's really good.
But it's true customization. And also what you can achieve as a dentist may not necessarily meet the needs and the expectations of the patient. They may say, well, it's always looked slightly wonky and I've always been like that. And I wouldn't feel, whilst you could correct it, I wouldn't feel me if it still didn't have a bit of me in there.
Well, it made me think of when you buy a Ferrari, you can pay for a scale model. Right. So what happens is you can say, I want this, this, and this, and they'll say, right, well, we'll produce you a scale model which has basically everything that you've specified, so as you can see exactly really cool. What your Ferrari is.
That's a great analogy, that, because again, I say this all the time. That's why I'm a big fan of the mock-up and almost copy and paste dentistry to a degree, because you've got to show the patient something. It's almost try before you buy. You wouldn't go and drive a new car from the showroom without test driving it. You wouldn't go and, get a brand new tailor-made suit and just take it off the peg and walk out. You're going to go, you're going to tweak it, you're going to customize it. Then when that day comes when you've got to put it on, it's perfect. And that's what we're doing with smiles. And again, we're talking about customer psychology here, nothing more. And you're going to spend a lot of money on your smile. You should be able to see it before you get it. And it's only definitely. Really... I think some people, when we understand that this technology is available to us, it's almost sometimes egos get in the way a little bit. That I'm the dentist, I'm going to do it right, and I can do it freehand because I'm artistic. That's great, but realistically, if we're going to move forward with the times, there's better ways to do things which improve the journey for the patients. That's all it's about. It's not about how we feel; it's about how the patient feels.
I'll tell you what, Robbie, that's a nice lead into a question I was going to ask between the three of us and our listeners. When you run your avant-garde sort of courses, and there's some dentists that you now know you can go, they're never going to follow it. They're just not going to go with it because of maybe their egos. I was intrigued. You get these guys on that you can show them a model that they can use, and are there people that, as you've been doing them for a while, that you can sort of go, that person is never going to do it because that your ego thing, because they go, no, because I'm brilliant, I can do it. Do you have people like that you obviously you don't say it? You can sense. You sort of can think, right, well, they're not going to follow. Obviously, you can sense it. I think that's our biggest hindrance in dentistry. There's a lot of egos. And it's understandable. Some people are great businesses. They're fantastic dentists in their own hands, and that's what I'm trying to overcome. Dentistry is never going to grow globally if we focus on, I'm a great dentist, I can do this. It's almost like you're going to go for heart surgery, and you got two surgeons. You got a guy that can put a little catheter in your groin and go up and just pop a stent in, and that's it. You don't know. Someone's going to cut your chest open and go, but I'm great with my hands. I can do this very clean. Which one are you going to choose? You're going to choose the technological way, or you're going to choose the old-fashioned way. But for some reason, we love to do things like, and Einstein, what did Einstein say? Insanity is doing the same things over and over and expecting better results.
Yeah,
my mentality is we've got to progress consistently, and that comes with technology and skill together, hand in hand.
But it should always be about them, not us. But
it's always going to be about the patients.
There's a lot of people that still, On the digitization side of things, how far along the line are we? Are we still just scratching the surface of what could be achieved digitally, or is it quite well developed now?
We've obviously just if you think about CAD/CAM as a whole, So we've just brought this fantastic system called First Fit to the UK exclusively with Avant-Garde. Now, people know about guided implant placements, where you get a CBCT, you get an STL, you decide where you want the tooth to be, and then you create a guide for where that implant position needs to go, ideally in the best possible position with the bone, but the best possible position for the final result. And then you guide the implant placements through a surgical guide, 3D printed, all CAD CAM, and you pretty much can't get it wrong. Okay. People also talk about conservation of tooth structure, turkey teeth. Okay. Sometimes you have to, well, a lot of the time you have to prep to get the best results. But, if you think about veneer preps, the more minimal it is, if everything remains in enamel, the bond strength of the veneer to the tooth is, optimal. So there's ways that have been around. I still use techniques that Garel developed 25, 30 years ago, prepping through a mock-up and then using that as a guide, using silicon guides, using 3D printed guides that we use digitally. But now we've got this CAD CAM in First Fit where the software designs the perfect veneer. And with that perfect veneer, it designs the perfect tooth preparation, which is super, super, super conservative. So we're taking away human error here. Because when you prep a tooth yourself, you want to be conservative, but you also want to make sure you give the lab enough space for the restoration. Otherwise, you're not going to get the result that you promised the patient. And we're talking about copying and pasting what we've already shown them, right? So what this does is the software does the preparation and then designs very specific, very precise guides, which we 3D print. And all we have to do is put a special handpiece in and move it from side to side, and the prep is done. That means anyone can prep a veneer in the utmost conservative way possible. And because the prep and the veneer, final veneer design is done together, what's even better is the prep and the fit can take place on the same appointments, and the patient's saving hours and hours and hours in the chair. So everybody wins.
And that just fascinating on that. So is the handpiece, is that controlled by the dentist?
The handpiece is controlled by the dentist. But mark my word, when this actually takes off, you can put it in a robot's hand because it goes into a...
Wow.
And this is and going back to our previous point, you can see why this becomes challenging, can't you? Because you get ego. I've spent 5 years at dental school. I'm doing a load of postgraduate work.
You're always going to need the dentist. Technology. You're always going to need the dentist. It's making our life easier.
And that's the thing. And I think the dentists need to kind of rework and re-understand their role in the process of delivering the dentistry, because there still needs to be that explanation to the patient, there needs to be that engagement, there needs to be the planning, but then you use the technology to help you in the areas where it becomes more predictable and you get a good outcome.
And then what it does, Andy, is it massively improves accessibility across the board for the patients. So if I can go and handpick 100 dentists in the UK that can prep very well, prep very conservatively, fantastic. What if I can turn that into 100,000 dentists that can all do it the same way? Accessibility for the patient increases, which means that the cost can come down inevitably.
I was going to say the cost is going to come down from that, isn't it?
Now, people probably won't like what I'm saying because I want to charge £2,000 for the prep because I'm great. But at the end of the day, we're trying to improve the industry. We're trying to push it forward and trying to make these things accessible for everybody. And that's my passion at the minute. And it starts with educating the dentists, absolutely. And then the middle ground is quality control. How do we quality control these things? And the only way you quality control it is through the lab. So my lab isn't really a lab. It's more of a lab and the planning center. So it's planning and manufacture, which has a great relationship with the dentist. Absolutely. And we have very strict protocols that everyone has to follow. If you don't want to follow these protocols through our portal, which we've built, then don't use the lab. But we know that if you follow these protocols, you get a level of quality.
But going back to that thing about, but you're saying, I still want to charge £2,000. But the reason that some people will be going to Turkey and other places to get their dentistry is based on price. So if there's the introduction of technology, which means it's more affordable in the UK, then that takes away...
It removes we actually have a solution at our fingertips, because if we can prep and fit in 2 hours, what would take otherwise 10 hours, okay, we've just saved 8 hours of chair time. Therefore, we can bring our costs down. Okay, the patient then can have an accessible, more accessible solution, which we can educate them on why it's better Okay, they're going to pay more than they're paying in Turkey, absolutely, because they're getting a better quality. But we're going to hopefully find that middle ground. The only thing that's missing, which is the final piece to my jigsaw, is we educate the dentists, then we quality control through the lab. Is we need to combine this into a brand which is understood by the end user, and that's where branding and scalability comes in. And I don't think anyone's ever scaled dentistry. People probably think, oh, they have, because they say I've got 500 practices, but that's not scaling at all, because the standard in every single one of those practices is different.
No.
So Avant-Garde wants to become a brand which is recognized by the end user, and it represents all these things: minimally invasive dentistry, certain levels of quality, what we do, and then you attach that brand to anyone else's brand. You know, call your dental practice what you like, but you have that stamp of authority by Avant-Garde on. We will find you patients because we represent a certain standard which is unheard of at the minute.
And the market potential is huge, isn't it?
It's massive.
I mean, what's fascinating, I think one of the things that struck me when we talked to that guy from the US was he was saying, you know, that 60% of people in the US don't go to a dentist, and that's predominantly probably because of cost. So if you look at that and say, is that replicated in the UK? Was it 50%? But then you're able to bring down the cost of the delivery, then the market, you just, you know, you expand the market potential huge, don't you? It's massive.
Yeah. And I think in any market, I think it's very short-termism trying to keep prices up when there's alternative solutions that you're not introducing. I think that is a bumpy road.
Because someone comes in like you've done.
Yeah,
it's there. The technology's there.
Yeah, but it's going to take a group effort. You know, I believe the answers are there, and what we're trying to do now is teach people and try and motivate people to understand, you know, the way everybody's life can improve. If the dentist's life can improve, you know, you can build a good team of dentists and be assured that the quality is the same. All you need to do is put the protocols in place. The patients sort of will improve. UK dentistry will hopefully improve because less people will feel the need to travel. And, you know, I think the thing about Turkey Teeth and the response to that has been fantastic. You know, some of the UK dentists have done an amazing job over the last few weeks in utilising that new awareness to then educate people quite quickly, which is great. You know, and it's about everybody working together for the same common goal. And put egos aside. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So if running a dental practice, a lab, changing the future of dentistry wasn't enough, you then decided,
obviously in Robbie's diary.
I was going to say, you had a few hours spare, so then you decided to hook up with Jake Hall and create Mediform, the scrubs business. You obviously like your clothes, you like your style, image is very important. I guess that was part of it, but that's just me sort of, you know, talking out loud. What was missing in the scrubs world that you wanted to fix? Because there's a theme here in the things you've done. There's been something that you haven't liked, and you said, I can do it better.
I want to change it. Yeah.
Well, I was buying Jake's clothes for a while and wearing them as work clothes, you know. And then I had employees, mainly the dentists, and I was saying, you know, I want you to wear this. And I was sending them a link to Jake's website preview. And then I was speaking to Jake during COVID, and I was like, listen, I want to create my own line it was mainly for my own business at first. Like I want to dress everybody the same, but I want you to design it for me and make it, and let's do a deal. And then I thought, I was a little bit bored during COVID as well. I thought, actually, let's just make a business of this, because really, you know, we're trying to change perceptions. That's what it's all about. That comes with the way we are dressed as well. You know, first impressions do matter, and it's a, you know, I think dentistry now, it's a young dentist's arena, and you can see that over the years. You know, it's the young dentists that are really coming into their own and thriving, and you know, together we can change that perception, which will again improve the patient's experience of what dentistry actually is, what modern dentistry actually is. So I went and met with Jake, and we sat down and we started, you know, developing something new, really, which is Mediform, which had a fantastic response, to the point where we got the stock in and then we sold out quite quickly. And we've struggled with all those teething problems like every business does. And me being me, I like to do everything my own way. I micromanage things. I like building.
Oh, really? That surprises me.
Yeah, I like building things from the ground up. That's what I really love. And I think Metaform will be a fantastic
Yeah.
business. I think it's got the potential to be one of my greatest decisions. If we take the next few years to really develop, lay the foundations, we've got a lot of things in the pipeline that we want to do. With Metaform, we almost want to run two businesses side by side. A direct to consumer type, an e-commerce model, but also a B2B model where we're supplying big companies and corporates. And it's not just about dentistry. This is for the healthcare industry as a whole. We want to supply care homes, nurseries, vets, medics, everybody really, beauticians. I think we've got that sort of niche, and we've got Jake's brain behind with the sort of the creative elements. The market's absolutely,
market
absolutely
potential's huge.
massive,
Oh, yeah,
massive. It
it's
just needs a
massive.
little bit more time, which I don't have at the minute. But we are building a little bit of a mini team and an advisory board that we can scale that business and see what opportunity it is. Like, you look at the only other, so the market leader obviously is Figs. We're trying to be a little bit different to Figs, but if you look at Figs,
Yeah.
that company started in 2014. Okay, it's raised over 300 million in that time, but it's got a market valuation of $4.5 billion.
Ah,
I'll take 10% of
that's huge.
that.
I'm loving the fact of, mate. Yeah, based on our conversation with you, Robbie, I'm just thinking, and they're a bit tongue in cheek. When you come across a place that you don't quite like the coffee, it's going to be. I'll tell you what. I think let's produce a new range of coffee.
Yeah.
Because I don't quite like this. I think it's fascinating that you've developed this brand, sort of as a side hustle, because you had a little bit of time. And it's fascinating where that's going to. It's quite an interesting. You obviously do it instinctively. In the fact of, I don't know if you. It doesn't sound like you look
No.
for an opportunity, but you then when
Yeah, and
something comes
I
up,
become
you spot an
obsessed with the opportunity. Like I said earlier, I'll jump and learn how to fly on the way down. If I see something and I believe in it, I'll just say, yeah, go on,
Yeah,
I'll
it's
do that.
fascinating.
And
Yeah.
I've been burnt in the past by doing things like that. People come to me all the time with opportunities, and sometimes I've gone, yeah, and then you do it because of the way I am. You do it half-hearted. It ends up doesn't really being what you want it to become, and because I'm very particular, when it hasn't become what I want it to become,
Yeah.
I'd rather just give it away. You know. So it's never always
Yeah. So, but you were saying Mediform. So you were saying Mediform was one of your best decisions. What's your biggest
in
mistake?
business.
What is the thing that
I made lots of mistakes in business. Like, what people don't like. When I was in university, I opened a noodle bar with my friend. Just thought it was a great idea. Lost a bit of money on that. I've done other little ventures here and there that I've had little goes at. But again, if it doesn't really, if I don't have the time, or I don't have the, it's not really the time. I always manage to find the time. It's more the passion. If I don't have the passion, then I just
Yeah.
I I love this, the fact of people might not know stuff like that, that they see the success of you and what you've done, but they don't see the fact of there have been the noodle bar, that the way you laughed at it was like,
yeah.
obviously that didn't quite work, and there's obviously others. So you've built your craft on
You learn from the
success and
failure. So
failure, and
the
probably
noodle
learned
bar,
quite a
I
lot from the
learned
failures as
massively how
well.
to, how to
Yeah.
recruit and manage staff. And we had 3 chefs in the noodle bar that literally pulled my pants down. And they ran my business. They aimed the price, and before you know it, they had control of my
Yeah.
business, and they were holding me to ransom. Like, I'll never let that happen again. I've had an
Yeah.
online fitness range which didn't take
Yeah.
off, but I learned an awful lot about marketing and influencer marketing and all those things when we had that. So I understood a lot about that side of
Yeah.
things. I learned a lot about marketing when we had that business. And there's others as well. But what I've learned at the end of it is you stick to what you know. If you know my core businesses now, they're all within dentistry, or
Yeah.
Metaform's a little bit outside, but they're within my controllable environment
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be going until they sell everything together as one big package, which me and Andy may have touched on in the past. But my goal again is to have something so unique that all this EBITDA stuff and Andy tells me about, I know I'm going to have something which that's going to get pushed aside. I'm going to tell you all my USPs, and I'm going to name the price. When that day comes, that's when I know I've done enough.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, saying about the failure thing, Will Smith does a good monologue about failure, and it's kind of goes down the line of, if you're not failing often, you're probably not doing enough things. And listen to you talk then, Robbie, about those kind of elements that didn't work out. You take so much from things that don't work out. And I think you do. I think you learn so much more
Yeah,
when things
definitely.
don't work out when they do. And you were saying about the online fitness range and the influencer marketing. Obviously, from a dental point of view, a large part of your online profile is collaborating and working with celebrities and famous people. You've obviously got a strong link with Liverpool Football Club, and being a big fan, obviously that's a lovely fit for you. Has that strategy worked well for you in terms of raising the profile of your business,
Yeah,
working with people
absolutely, absolutely.
in that sort
The
of
thing
sphere of
with
society?
Liverpool has just been something which progressed naturally. It was never really a chosen strategy. We don't
Mm,
really have a deal with the club, or I don't do a deal with the players or anything like that. It just started that one or two players come, and then more come, and they tend to, you know, footballers especially. If you think you've got very young individuals with a lot of money, a lot of fame, and they can be exploited very easily. And what you tend to find with the footballers is all they want is someone they can trust. Um,
yeah.
and and my relationship with footballers and celebrities,
Mm,
but predominantly footballers, even still nationally now, is we have that mutual respect of not just trust, but it's a funny one. It becomes more of a friendship and a mutual respect. They never look at me as a dentist. It's like, it's Robbie. He's done well for himself.
yeah.
He's great at what he does, and he'll look after us, and he'll treat us like one of his friends, or he'll never look at people as
Mm.
just a normal person. And
You're
I
just a
think
normal person, yeah.
they're just fed up of the whole, like, oh, because they're famous, people are going to kiss their ass. They're like, they don't like that. And that certainly isn't the way I am.
Mm.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
all we're all going in the same hole at the end of all this. So no one's different.
Yeah, they must never know who's
Yeah.
genuine, mustn't it? It must be really hard to know
Yeah.
who's actually genuine when you're
Mm,
that, because as you say, people are either just
Yeah.
after your money
mm,
or after the association.
mm.
So to have someone who's like, well, I can do your teeth for you, and this is how I'm going to treat you, and you're like my mate, rather than a target. I don't know if that's quite the
Yeah.
right word, but
And is there a part of Liverpudlian in there not being impressed by things like that as well? Is that because you're quite down to earth, aren't you? Is it those sort of things that you've never been particularly impressed about, and it's like, well, I'm just going to get my job done. Then it doesn't really matter
I
to me
think
who you
so. I
are. Does
think
that
most
work?
houses are very down to earth, and it's hard to impress us. We're not impressed by things like that. We're more impressed in authenticity. Authenticity is a big thing for me, and if you're your true self and you're authentic,
Yeah.
whether you loved or hated, it doesn't really matter. And that's a big
Mm,
big thing about Scouse pride. Really, we're authentic,
mm,
and we are who we are.
yeah. Who do you look to
No one
for
in
mentorship?
particular. I just listen to podcasts, read books. I'll always look deep within myself as well. To be honest with you, that's just the way I've been. Again, martial arts and
Mm,
fighting. At the end of the day, all that hard work in the gym and all those tournaments and competitions that we've won, it's only ever you against you. You're there on your own when you're in those sort of battles and challenges,
mm.
and that's the way I've always been. You have good days, you have bad days, but at the end of the day, you're on your own. So I'll always look within myself for answers, and I'll find my way.
mm, yeah. Those those lessons you learnt young in life have really served you well, haven't they?
Mm.
Lots of people just don't ever learn that, or it comes from a bit late. But for you to have that at such a young age, it really has helped propel you
I think so.
forward.
I think so. Yeah.
We always finish up in the same way. We always ask our guests the same two questions, just to get an insight beyond the chat we've had today. So, if you could be the fly on a wall in a certain situation, where and
So for
when would
me,
you
it
would you
would have
like to
been
be?
in the changing room at half time, Istanbul 2005, when Liverpool were 3-0 down against AC Milan. You know, I'm a character, and sort
Yeah.
of the willingness to never give up, and all those things which are deep rooted within me. I would love to have been in that dressing room and see who the characters were, see who were the people that lifted that
Mm.
team, and made sure that the belief was
Yeah.
instilled for that second half. Obviously, Steven Gerrard had to be the main guy there, being yeah. But to be
Yeah, so
there
Stevie
and
G's
witness
probably got
that,
to be the one you're a bit.
and then witness it at the
Yeah.
end when they won, you know, that's you
Yeah.
can't write those stories. But that, you know,
Yeah.
that came from somewhere. It came from one or two individuals that picked that team up at half time, and to witness that would have been inspirational and motivational.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's not, everybody assumes it's Stevie G, but sometimes you get surprised in those situations.
Yeah.
It may be somebody who's a bit quieter that just drops a few words, or, you know, just.
Do you know, I was in the city
where were you
centre
on that
Liverpool
night,
with
Where did you
friends
watch the game?
that night. I wasn't there, but the parties that went on for days afterwards, I was happy I was there. Like, the whole city stood still. People were like, cars couldn't move. Everyone was in the streets. It was unbelievable, because obviously we hadn't won for a long time.
Mm.
But the way that they won as well was like,
Was
you'll
Rafa
never
the
get an
manager?
evening like that again. It was Rafa Benitez.
Right, yeah.
I say, was that Rafa? Was Rafa the manager then? Yeah.
Yeah. Incredible.
I quite liked
Incredible.
it when he came back to the stadium for something, didn't he? I don't know if it was the Hillsborough, and the response that he got was like amazing from the crowd. He's obviously seen as one of the sort of like loved managers of Liverpool.
Yeah. And if you could meet somebody, given the opportunity to sit down and have a glass
I think
of
that
wine,
one's easy
or
as
a
well.
dinner
Muhammad
with them,
Ali.
who would you like to meet?
Again, you know, just filled with self-belief.
Right.
Humble though, but you know, filled with self-belief. A big manifester, which I think, you know, I'm a big believer in manifestation and visualization, and I think Muhammad Ali was just, he was a one-off. He was a very, very special individual. So yeah, it's just to sit and have dinner with him and just listen would be amazing.
Fabulous. Robbie, it's been an absolute joy. It's been great. We've covered a lot of ground, but I just think that whole piece around your mindset and the background to kind of how it started, it all comes together and makes sense. It's been a really enjoyable conversation.
That's
really
been brilliant.
enjoyable conversation.
Really good.
Very much been a pleasure,
I've learned
guys.
so much. It's been fabulous, actually.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate your time today, Robbie. Look after yourself.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.